still want to keep them, so I put them here, and I put books that I want to read, that I already have, that I want to read soon, so yeah, but hopefully it's an okay background. So today I wanted to talk about the myth of Sisyphus, because I really like this book, and I read it last year for university, and I thought it was great, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's got some really interesting ideas and topics, so I wanted to sort of talk through it today, and share my views, and I've tapped it, as you can see, quite a lot, so yeah, I'm gonna go through it and talk about it and just chat. Okay, so it's written by Camus, who I've only read The Stranger as well, and honestly, if anyone's read The Stranger, this contextualizes The Stranger a lot, and it makes you understand why he writes such a weird book like The Stranger, because it does seem kind of weird if you just go straight into The Stranger and that's your first impression of him, I think. But this explains his worldview and his ideas about sort of his existential ideas. So I think, yeah, this is really good if you want to get into him, but then you want to sort of know a little bit about what he's about. So he basically, my channel name is obviously Absurd ASMR, and this book is sort of the reason why I named it that, and also I thought it was just catchy. So I think I've talked about this a little bit before, but the idea of the absurd is that he puts it in this book like there is a conflict between humans wanting answers about why we're here, why we exist like we do, what's the meaning behind our lives, and there's a conflict between that desire for meaning and for answers, and the sort of chaos and basically the fact that there are no answers from the universe. You will never get an answer to why we're here. The meaning of life will always sort of evade us. It will never actually present itself through the world, through the universe. You'll never be able to look and say, this is the meaning, this is why we're here. So because of that, well, he sort of says that we go about our daily lives and you're going through the monotonous stages where you're doing your daily tasks, and then suddenly this feeling will hit you about why you're here, and the absurd will sort of hit you, and you'll realise that you'll become aware that nothing you're doing really has any purpose and no meaning. And he says that basically sorry, I keep saying basically, what you're confronted with is the question of whether life is worth living, even if it's meaningless. And does its absurdity require one to escape it through hope or suicide? So he also says that some people try to escape the fact that there is really no meaning through things like God and religion, which are a leap of faith, but they do provide you with that belief and that meaning that you need to overcome sort of difficulties, and they give you a sense of purpose that can really help with this conflict with the absurd. And I think that's a really good point, because I feel like obviously religion is to some extent it gives you an innate sense of purpose and meaning that makes your life worth something without you having to impose that on yourself. You are God's creation, you're made in his image, and that means that you're special and you have a place on your life is purposeful because he made you. That sort of thinking, I can see why that's so helpful to some people, because sort of have an answer to this problem then. And also the idea of heaven and hell, like if you're trying to ensure that you're going to go to a good place after you die, then that gives you a lot of a purpose for acting well and things on in your life. Oh, this is the part where he explains what it's like when you realise this absurdity, and I want to read this bit. It happens that the stage set collapse. Rising, tram, 4 hours in the office or factory, meal, tram, 4 hours of work, meals, sleep, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, according to the same rhythm. This path is easily followed most of the time, but one day the why arises, and everything begins in that weariness triggered with amazement. Begins, this is important. Weariness comes at the end of the acts of a mechanical life, but at the same time, it inaugurates the impulse of consciousness. It awakes consciousness and provokes what follows. So it's the idea that we are very much set in a routine, and even people who aren't set in a routine, we are naturally trapped by the fact we live in days, and moments follow moments, and the days of the week will always be the same kind of thing, and we can't really escape that. And we have to eat, we have to do certain things, and it's the feeling that why are we doing, you get those moments, and I really think that this happens a lot, that you get these moments where you realise, that you zoom out and you realise, wow, we're really doing these things for no ultimate purpose. But then he also says that this is the way that when you do ask why, and when you actually begin to question why you're doing these things, it then becomes, you then are living you've accessed this level of thinking that isn't just autopilot, you're actually engaging in the meaning of your existence, or lack thereof. But yeah, I think that's a nice idea, that is forever bound to it. The idea that once you become conscious of it, you can't escape that. And I really think that is true as well, because I think when I was younger, I didn't feel this sense of why. I didn't really question those things. I thought it was so easy to make meaning. And then once I entered my late teens, I started to really struggle with feeling this sense of meaninglessness and having no purpose. Purpose is the real thing. And sort of there being nothing greater that you can tie yourself to, and then you're sort of always trying to minimize that feeling, but it's really there. And when I'm not busy, I really struggle with that, and I have to make my own purpose and meaning, because otherwise I find it very difficult to get past that. So when he talks about suicide, he sort of says that what you can do in response to this is either kill yourself, or you can rebel against the fact that life is ultimately meaningless, and you can not, because existentialism is sort of about making meaning, but this is not that. This is saying, okay, you're accepting there is no meaning and living anyway. So you're not trying to make meaning, you're not trying to say, oh, actually I found this thing and this is the meaning of life. You're saying, no, I understand that honestly this is pretty pointless, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I really like that idea. I think I like the idea of not deluding yourself that there is sort of something greater, but actually accepting it and being like, gonna get on with it, gonna do it anyway. Yeah, and he some people think it's absolute bollocks and don't get it, but I think it makes a lot of sense to me, honestly, and I like thinking about things in the same way, and I just think it's a real for someone who's struggling with that feeling. I think it really helps, and it sort of helped me when I read it, because I thought, okay, this is kind of honestly a practical way of approaching this feeling, and it encapsulated how I was feeling so well, and the feelings I'd had for a while, and it made me not sort of feel alone in this struggle of kind of feeling that sometimes your life doesn't mean anything, and you're doing things just for the sake of